Ready? Okay, you guys, we're going to do an homage to Amy Cuddy. If you would, and you're able to stand up, I'd like you to say, I am the future. Stand up. I am the future.
I am the future.
I am the future.
I am the future.
We are the future.
We are the future.
Woohoo! All right, thank you so much. So you are the future. You are innovators. You are policy shapers. You are prosperity creators. And in this ever increasingly complex world, it is essential that you know how to navigate conflict productively. Conflict is just a natural part of business in life. It's not all about dukes up. I'm going to fight you. There's somebody who has a disagreement with you. Sometimes it's more emotional and energized, and sometimes less so. Sometimes it's with your boss. Sometimes it's with other stakeholders, internal or external. So my intent for you is that you leave here with your productive conflict workout, that you are able to have more peace, more power, and more power that's not at the expense of others or of you, and more prosperity for you, for your company, and for your communities. Here are 3 reasons why this matters to me a lot. Early in my career, I did not know how to navigate conflict productively. So my bosses loved me because it was like they'd spin me up. They'd let me go all Xena, Princess Warrior out there accomplishing results. And let me tell you, at a certain point in your career, it's not just how you get the results, it's how you get those results. So I also had default setting. It was fight or flight. And I really want you to have more choice about this so that you can get out and contribute to the world all that's your best and your brightest. So the other reason is for my own business. So my company, Leadership Hand, has been in existence, a small business, for about 16 years. And every single client we worked with, from Fortune 500 to middle-sized companies to small and medium-sized enterprises, it all comes down to how people work together. Successes or failures, all comes down to how we work together. And the third one, sorry, this is emotional for me, but thank you, because you are the launch of productive conflict. Our vision has evolved. When I first moved to Washington, D.C., really wanted to be involved in the international community, and now we have a vision, a large vision, that has to do with working with women and men who are in and adjacent to conflict regions around the world. And ironically, and a little bit sadly, some of our conflict regions are right here in the United States. So that's what makes this even more important for you. So thank you. All right, so let me show you where we're going very quickly. So these guys just teed us up with a wonderful global overview. We're going to build on that because it's really important that you see the ocean you're swimming in. Sometimes those ripple effects occur elsewhere, and we don't even realize. We're just reacting. We're not responding. So we're going to talk about the global perspective. We're also going to talk about the high cost of conflicts and why it persists within our organizations, even within ourselves. Right? We're also going to give you your productive conflict workout. We're going to uncover your success strategy, or your teams, if you want to think about a team example. We are also going to do a perspectives exercise, which you see kind of teed up around the room here. So, what are some of the things that leaders in tech and women leaders must know? So we've already heard a lot of references to the World Economic Forum. Great data there. One of the things is that we are transitioning to multiple global powers. This means that we have additional volatility, complexity, that cooperation is strained. That has a direct impact on you. And before I got here from Washington, D.C., I did a little research. Columbus is really cool. You have a lot going on. You have the largest concentration of Fortune 1000 companies in the entire United States. You are a global city that's being impacted and impacting the rest of the world. The other thing is that these rapid changes that are happening in attitudes are causing schisms and polarization. My gosh, you know, it used to be optional for me to kind of have a meditation practice, and let me just tell you, it is not optional any longer. You know, and there are times when I tune in to the farm channel because I want to know how somebody's farming is doing. I don't want to see what's going on in the rest of the world. All right, so that is really a big factor. And the fourth is the thing that you guys are so jazzed about and you're contributing to and creating. It's the fourth industrial revolution. And we just heard some about that in the keynote. This is that blending and blurring and fusion of technologies that is transforming humanity. And it's also about billions of people having connectivity that never had it before. It is extraordinary. So this level of complexity, this level of interdependencies, creating massive uncertainty is really where at some point it's not just about your technical expertise, it's how do we work and collaborate with others productively. And that's why this is so, so important. So let me just ask a question here. With low being, I'm going to ask a scaling question about your experience of conflict. So remember, we do have a camera, we do have witnesses, if you're willing to speak up. What is on a low is, yeah, we have it, but you know what? We work through it. It's just part of business. The moderate is, you know what? We have a little bit more of it than I like. I think it's having an impact on us in terms of our company and our team performance. It's certainly having an impact on me. Sometimes I don't sleep as well. And high is where, holy cow, I am having to use hair color. I am having to, because the gray's coming in. Hey, that happened when I started my business. Seriously. All right. There's some truth to that. All right. So what is it, is keeping me up at night? It's really hindering. We are in a constant state of disruptive conflict. So who's on a low scale in here in terms of low conflict? And when I'm talking about the work context. Anybody? Okay, great. All right, cool. All right, you guys may want to keep your eye on them because you may want to find out what their companies are or what they're doing because they're doing something right. All right. How about on the moderate scale? How many moderate? Okay, a lot more moderate. All right, how about disruptive conflict? Who's experiencing that? Okay, great. Not great for you. All right, thank you for sharing. All right, so this has a tremendous, tremendous cost on us. Some of this we can actually quantify, but in terms of quality of life, how do you measure that? I mean, really, it is your one wild and precious life. How do you improve the quality of your well-being? So let's just take a look at some of the costs that have been quantified. There is a Harvard Business Review article where the senior managers estimate that their companies wasted $8,000 a day in conflict. That's over $2 million a year. If you are a small business, that is going to decimate you. If you are a middle-sized and fast-growing company, it is going to hamper your growth, and here's why. Because it's probably an indicator of something that's going off the rails. If you're a large company, we know that this is in multiples of 8,000. It's probably 8,000 a day per business unit. There's another study that also talks about, and this just, it breaks my heart because we go in and we want to contribute to a company. We want to see our career grow. 30% of people had left the company because of conflict. Out of here, all right? So if you don't think culture is important, if you are in a leadership role in shaping culture, if you don't think that's important, it really is. Another 25% said that they had taken a leave of absence or they had taken sick leave because of conflict at work. Welcome. Hi, guys in the back. Yay. Okay. So let's talk about some of the, I went a little bit too fast. All right, so I want to tell you about 3 reasons why, if conflict, is so prevalent and we know it's so costly, why aren't we better at addressing it? So you will see I had a little fun. So my last name is Hand. The karmic wheel turned. As a child, this is not always great to be named a body part, but as you start to name your business and you become leadership hand, and it makes absolute sense because that's what you're providing, strategic advisory service, the leadership development, yay. But we did have a little fun with some of the images in here, so little hands. So here's what happens. Companies either don't see it, they just don't see it. And that can also happen because when you're in a position of power and authority, sometimes you're not aware of what's happening at other levels of the organization. All right? Or if they do see it, sometimes they are slow to address it. This can often happen if a company's strategy is actually to acquire a lot of businesses and they haven't done a good job in terms of the alignment. There can be a lot of conflict there. Or sometimes they may bring in team building. And I'll be candid with you, team building can help, but sometimes it could just tick people off. Right? Okay. So the other reason is even skillful leaders, even some of the really most skillful leaders, when they're trying to rapidly align their teams, they can make some common mistakes. And those common mistakes, we actually did a Huffington Post piece on this. I'll include it in our resources page for you. but they can make those common mistakes. And so what is low-level conflict when they're trying to rapidly align their team, and this is when they've got a mission-critical project or they're trying to make a mission-critical decision, what it becomes low-level conflict can become conflict on steroids once the stress starts to increase and the pressure increases. All right? So the third reason is that people in teams often don't have the skills. Now, some of you are in organizations where you may have a wonderful mentor who can teach you how to do this and navigate this more effectively. But for most of us, we do not know how to do this and handle this well in teams. And here's what's really cool. When you can do this, then you and I get to have the difficult conversation without me saying, you and your mother's ugly. It doesn't go to that personal level. It's that we actually have, here's how I'm seeing things. How are you seeing things? You hear that? How are you seeing things? That mindset of inquiring into to understand where somebody else is perceiving something. So as I mentioned earlier in my career where I didn't have these skills, here was my mindset. I'm right and you're wrong. And there was also a little bit of competitiveness, even though I didn't realize it, which was that differences were obstacles to be overcome. When you're in that Xena Princess Warrior mode, woohoo! You are out there to conquer the world. Your flaming scimitar drawn. So it wasn't the differences were an opportunity to create a better solution. All right? So what if you and your companies had $8,000 a day back? Woo, wouldn't that be pretty cool? All right, over $2 million a year recaptured. What if your stress level and your teams were decreased and your performance improved? What if you have more peace, power, and prosperity, however you uniquely define it? Because we truly are unique. When we get in our team environments, that's unique. Our company environments are unique. So we want to define this for what this looks like for ourselves. Okay, so this is your productive conflict workout. All right, this is not rocket science, and it is. And we've done extensive amount with NASA of work with them with the flight center, so I really feel we can claim that, make those statements and mean it. It is about mindset. It is about assumptions. It is about your perspectives. Your mindset, the first thing that goes on, if you're coming in and saying, what can we learn here? What can we learn here? Am I contributing to this? Is it an expansive mindset, or is it one that contracts and shuts down possibilities? How about your assumptions? All right, every single one of you, because you're in tech, I know that when you are engaging in a project or initiative, you are most likely identifying what are the assumptions that you're making about this initiative going forward. And you know what? Sometimes we don't do that when we're working with other stakeholders, when we're working with people, when we're thinking about our boss. Now, if you're in, how many in sales and marketing? Anybody? Okay, sales and marketing, a generalization, but sales and marketing can be a little bit better about this because they're looking out at the external customers and saying, and then they're making their assumptions explicit. But when you don't make your assumption explicit, you've got this thing underground that's shaping your actions, it's shaping your perspectives, it's shaping the results that you get. So you really want to do this, making those explicit. And perspectives, whose perspectives are you seeking? Are you seeking a mentor? Are you seeking somebody who's going to challenge your perspective? Because you know what? The world looks quite different when I'm standing in my shoes than if I go stand in somebody else's shoes. And time can actually be a friend. So I saw a lot of hands go up when we asked how many people were our moms, right? How many of you had your perspective change on your parents or whoever raised you once you had children? Anybody? Yeah, okay. So time can change things, and all of a sudden you might feel a little bit more gratitude for some of that stuff that went on back then, right? A little bit more appreciation for it. Okay, so I'd like to get you very quickly to your success strategy. And I'd like you to think of this from the context of either you as an individual or a team that you're on. So, and this could be, look, if some of you have not, are not in the workplace, maybe if you're in school right now, use that environment. I choose an example of a time, just one, because I know you've got a gazillion, just one when you successfully navigated conflict and the outcome was good for everyone. It wasn't just you, it was for the other person or the other persons involved. So if you will, just take a moment and think of that, an example of that. Okay, have you got one? Yes, no. Okay, I see. So thank you. You've got the friendly eyes and a smile on your face. What's your name? Yes, right. Yes, I'm coming over to you so you know who I'm speaking with. Sorry, I'm going out to range the camera here. Yeah, what's your name? Nancy?
Oh, you picked the introvert. Yes, Nancy. Hi.
Okay, Nancy. Okay. All right, Nancy. I hope that you will receive this. This is a copy of my book, Hidden by Gender. It hit #1 on Amazon and Women in Business, and for speaking up. So I want to tell you, one of the most difficult things that we can do is when we're standing in this position of you, is standing on our own behalf. And she just stood on her own behalf because she was willing to respond. She held her hand up. It is really difficult to stand on your own behalf. Please, this is applause worthy. So thank you. Thank you. All right. So you can go by door #1 or door #2. I can ask you more about your situation, or you can pass and I'll find somebody I'll ask somebody else.
I'll be happy to answer questions.
Okay, fantastic. Great. Okay, could I ask you to get somebody pass the microphone by my laptop, if you would, please? Thank you so much. Oh, yay, thank you. Okay, awesome. Okay, so you got to kiss the mic.
Okay.
All right, you didn't know that was going to go on in here, did you? Okay, so tell me just a little bit about the conflict that you navigated successfully.
So we were having a problem with getting our testing done in software within a particular timeline. Mm-hmm. And of course, development wanted us to go faster and faster and faster. Mm-hmm. And we had an enormous amount of testing to do. And we were all getting pulled onto separate projects. So I came up with an idea. Somebody else kindly stepped up to the plate to help me organize everything. And I started pitching it at the grassroots level. So I'm like, I think this is a solution that'll help us all, and started pitching it one-on-one to all the testers involved, sometimes one-offs, sometimes in threes, until we had hit absolutely everybody. And even my manager later on said, I thought you were crazy. When you first came to me, I thought you were insane. We pulled it off. We took testing down from 5 weeks to 2 days.
Oh, holy cow, wow.
Yeah, and there were some people who were not on board necessarily, but when we said, listen, what we know isn't working is what we're doing now. We have to try something. Let's try this. This is the only idea on the table, and we will tweak it as we go. And people were amazingly receptive.
Wow. Okay, awesome. Wow, thank you so much. So what did you, absolutely. Yeah. So what did you hear in her mindset there? What'd you hear? What? Positive mindset. So what were some of the things she was thinking? All right, something. She also did something very brilliant. She said she made her pitch. She said we know what's not working, so this is the only solution. She got buy-in. So what was her mindset? We think we can find something that works for everybody. Is that what I heard? Mm-hmm. Okay, something that can work for everybody, not just me. Right? So when I come to you and I've only got my interest in it, I swear to God there is something in us that is like this incredible radar, and it can pick up when somebody does not have our intent or our interest in mind. We leak somehow or another. So for her to come out with that mindset, and she went and engaged multiple perspectives, right? You went to every single stakeholder. Was that one-on-one?
Sometimes one-on-one, sometimes in groups of like 3 people at a time, but usually one-on-one so I could address their individual concerns.
Okay, this is brilliant because not everybody wants to speak up in a group. So she did, you heard that phrase about socializing a concept. She was brilliant in doing that. And then, she did something pretty cool too. We didn't hear exactly what she did, but her boss thought it was crazy, and yet she persisted. She persisted through that. She sought those multiple. She had the mindset. So any assumptions that you made here? What was one of the assumptions? Because you had assumptions that you made.
I did have to make some assumptions. Oh, sorry.
Okay, that's okay.
The assumption was that if everybody could see a possible solution in this, we would all be happier, and we would be able to focus on what we really wanted to do and what we really had to do, as opposed to this other work that everybody kind of viewed as a drag. Like if we take this approach, then it will free you up to go ahead and go back and do this other work that you really find more critical, right, that we have to do.
Okay, wonderful. So in that assumption, she also was addressing other people's needs, so it made it easier for them to be enrolled. So for any of you who feel that you are kind of on the introvert scale, look at the success example that you have right here. So thank you so much for that. Yay, yay. You are done. You are done. Yeah, okay, super. So this, so for any of you who just went through that exercise, again, go back and identify the components. What was your mindset? What were your assumptions? What other perspectives did you seek out? And I can promise you that you will have a dramatic increase in improvement in some of those conflict situations when you can match those two. You can take this same strategy that worked here, that mindset, apply it to another situation. Maybe it tweaks, maybe you change it slightly, but those are the mechanics of it. So it is not rocket science, and it is rocket science, because when we get out into the wild, which is back into our workplaces, back into our life, it can get a little shaky. So one of the things that I don't want to forget, I want to make sure to remind you of this. You know, there are times where that additional perspective is somebody who's just standing by your side. So we've had things I watched when I was having an altercation, if you will, with a contractor who had gotten 3 tries. His assessment of successful performance and mine differed. And he had just had surgery, and he was on pain medications. This was his first day out of the hospital, and he's standing in my bathroom looking and thinking that this is perfection, and I'm like, no. And he was like, he seemed like 10 feet tall at that point. We were in a small space. This is a big man, and he's sitting there, and he is telling me that I am an illogical woman. And at that point, I just went out of my body, because I was like, I know I'm not an illogical woman. This man is not talking to me anymore. But what did I do to manage that? I didn't have somebody there standing with me. I could have had a colleague come in and stand with me to help me stand on my own behalf. What I had done is I had called somebody and I said, you know what? I got a hairy, gnarly conversation that's coming up. Can I call you afterwards to say how it went? That was my support, because sometimes we need help standing on our own behalf. We are generous people, extremely generous people. We're problem solvers. We're looking out at the rest of the organization. We're looking out at the other people who are around us, and we need to learn to stand on our behalf, and sometimes that means asking for support. I'd say frequently. And you guys look around the room. This is your support. Columbus Women in Tech, that's your support. The city of Columbus, that is your support. You have a wellspring of it. So thank you for engaging with me in that. Let me show you what the structure of conflict is. So conflict, whether it's productive or unproductive, has the same structure, which is pretty interesting. So this is what the conflict looks like, that big iceberg on top, and here's what's underneath. We have the mindset, assumptions, and perspectives. If your mindset is about what won't work, about how it's adversarial, about if it's one that it closes down possibilities and is energized in a way that's not necessarily a healthy energy around it. If you are making assumptions that are about their negative intent versus your pristine, pure, wonderful intent, which is something we can do, right? You know, my motives are wonderful, theirs not so hot. So even if we're not consciously aware of that, we need to check our motives and getting those additional perspectives. So whether it becomes productive or unproductive, the structure is the same. All right, let me check my time here for a moment. Okay, so, sorry about that. Okay, so we are, excuse me, I went a little bit too fast. We are going to this, has anybody seen this quote before? There's a crack in everything, and that's how the light gets in. So we're going to engage in a large exercise. We're actually going to have you getting up and moving. And here's what's the deal with this exercise. Some of you are going to get a big aha. Some of you are going to get a tiny aha. And some of you are going to go, maybe not so much. But in a couple of days, there might be this tiny little crack. And that's where the light's going to get in. All right? So remember your productive conflict workout. It's about mindset, assumptions, and perspectives. So here's where I'd like to ask you to think about a conflict situation you'd like to have a little bit of insight into. We'll take a few calming breaths, and then I'll ask you to silently choose one of these perspectives to go stand by. We're just going to explore. So if you come over to you, that's going to be you, it's going to be you, it's going to be you. You can come choose to stand over here by you, or you could come choose to stand by something even more important. When you stand here, I really want you to kind of embody, so this is a little on the woo-woo side, but bear with me, there's science behind it, to stand in this something even more important. And this role, this position, is where we can often find something that is even more important than our position or their position. Sometimes we forget because we get in the habit of this kind of conflict situation. Even companies can forget something even more important. And that is awesome where we can find some really hidden, innovative solutions within a conflict situation. The neutral observer. The neutral observer is like a videographer. It's like the videographer. This is where you are truly in the neutral zone. You're not on one side or the other. You're just observing the facts. So this is a great place if you want to get a little insight into you over there or to a stakeholder group. The final position is, and again, you can pick any one of these, is this stakeholder. And this could be your boss. It might be another project team. It might be a division. It might be a client. Maybe it's even a company if you're looking for a new job or entering the workforce. So when you get to one of these positions, I want you to stand in it as if this is in your own shoes. So if this is a sales department, they're looking, I am now the sales department looking over at me over there. Does that make sense, what I've described? Okay, so you are actually going to try on different perspectives, and here's why this works. Anybody heard of Dan Ariely? Okay, Dan Ariely, he's a behavioral economist, wrote a great book called Predictably Irrational. And he talks about the fact that we as humans, if we design a chair, we do a great job of it. But when we get to something abstract, like an org chart, okay, sometimes the org chart does not represent reality. We don't do so well with abstractions. What this does is help us take these abstract concepts that we have and make them more concrete. So we've actually done this with leadership teams with more specific roles where they had challenges in, for example, one was with a European division. And when they did this exercise, they actually saw what the stakeholder needed and they saw how they were contributing to the problem, which was wonderful insight for them. They saw some things that they had done where their assumptions were hidden, and it helped bring those assumptions to the light of day, and then they could take different actions. So I'd like you to choose a conflict with a stakeholder group or another person that you'd like to have some insight into. I wouldn't choose something for purposes of this exercise. I would not choose something that's life or death because I would like you to have a little practice on it. But you know what? If you're game and the stakes are really high, that's fine too. So please think of something where you have a conflict you'd like a little bit of insight into. Could be something that's been, that has to be resolved this week or you'd like resolved this week. It could be something that's been going on for several months or maybe even a year. So just get that in mind. And then we've got a lot of people to move, so we will, I would like you to we'll take a couple of deep breaths and then I'm just going to ask you to choose one of these positions to go stand by or near. All right, so you will be getting up and moving to that. So let's just take a moment and just some calming breaths. So maybe 3 in, 3 out. Bring your awareness down. Calm that animal body that we all have. And if you will, silently get up and choose one of these to go stand by, these perspectives to explore. Okay, let's do this silently. So if you choose, come on up and explore a perspective. Take one of these. We have the stakeholder group. We have the neutral observer over here that would be like a video camera just watching. We have you over here. And even if you're standing in one of these other positions, imagine that's you over there. And we also have something even more important. So here's a very unusual request. Just notice what you notice. Keeping that conflict in mind that you want a little bit more insight into, just notice what you notice. Does somebody have something that from the something even more important? What do you notice in this position? And you might even look over at you. You might even look over at the stakeholder group or at the neutral observer. And just take a moment. What do you notice? Would you be willing to share? Do you notice something?
In my mind, when you are in this particular area, you're thinking more towards what's in for all of us, right? So it is more towards kind of like, what's the value and what are we trying to conflict on? So that is like, what is the ultimate goal we are trying to achieve out of it is what I think when I'm thinking about a conflict situation and what is beyond everything.
Okay, super. Do you have a specific conflict situation in mind?
Not really, not at this moment.
Okay, you do? Okay, great. So, thank you, excuse me. Kiss the mic.
Yep. I work for a small startup, and it's led by 3 white men, CEO and VPs, which is probably pretty normal. And we just had a conflict on this past Friday in our full company meeting about maternity and paternity leave that we don't have currently. And what was brought up was that if we give money to people who want to have children, then it's not fair to people who don't want to have children. Yep, you're welcome. That happened. Where I actually had a female coworker who said, one, which I stand in, I don't want to have kids, but if I did, I want my coworkers to be able to have maternity and paternity leave. So one of my coworkers stood in herself and was like, I believe this is really important and we should really look at it as you all being leadership. And the CEO was like, well, then you want more PTO. And she was like, not necessarily. I don't want more PTO. I want to see this be implemented. And there's a lot of companies that are more generous in this, and called them out and said, this is what I think is important. To which they were like, well, you can create a survey and see if everyone thinks it's important. So some good came out of it, but in this position, it's really, if you're able to give your employees that, they're going to be more productive and not worrying about having to save for 8 years to have kids. And they're going to be more fulfilled. So in that broader sense.
Okay, great. So if you stay focused on helping all employees be more productive, so it may or may not be with the leave, but if you go to that higher level, something more important is that we're all more productive. Sometimes you can find additional solutions hidden within it. We step out of that working at this level, we go to that higher level. Any of you who are doing requirements gathering, if somebody comes in and says, this is the requirement, and then you ask, well, what are you trying to accomplish? Then you go to that next level, right? We don't want to just stop right here. We want to go one beyond it, help encourage them. Thank you. Okay, for those of you who are in the U here and has a specific conflict in mind, what's something that you notice as you look around at something even more important, the neutral observer or the other stakeholder? Probably got some juice when you look over at the other stakeholder, for sure. Right? Does somebody have a noticing? Is everybody introverted? Okay.
There are a lot more people over there who seem to want to come to a higher level of understanding.
Okay, so this is actually very brilliant in that she's saying a lot more people. So we would rather not be in conflict. We would rather be looking at what's even more important. And again, probably looking out, as you said, for the whole, not just our own interests. And I would just also remind you again, very respectfully, make sure you stand on your own behalf. It can be a real challenge standing on our own behalf and learning to do that. So you get support, get other resources, put this into practice so that you don't leave yourself out of the picture, because that is another generalization. That is what women can do sometimes, be so focused on everybody else. We left ourselves out of the picture. And I believe there is an I in team. Sorry. A little lightning may strike there, but all right. From the neutral observer, who has a specific situation in mind, conflict situation, and from this position, what's something that you notice? Okay, thank you.
So in the conflict situation that I'm envisioning, when we were in this particular conflict, there were actually more than one different conflict happening, and nobody realized that those multiple conflicts were happening at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
and so
interesting.
stepping into this neutral observer position, I'm able to step back and see that those multiple conflicts were happening, and no one had the presence due to the tension of the situation to be able to call that out.
Okay, cool. All right, great. So there's some real value in going in the neutral observer role. Okay, we're going to do with the stakeholders. Finally, the other stakeholders looking over at you over there who has a specific conflict in mind, and they notice, what do they notice when they're looking? Yeah.
So the specific conflict I have, I'm a manager, and a lot of my resources are questioning. I've been doing, and they're of tenure, so they're questioning, I've been doing the same thing for X amount of years, and I'm wanting to motivate them to get them to do more, and they're really not understanding it. They've been successful up until this point, a career of 30 years. What's going to motivate me, or what makes me want to do more?
Okay.
So
right.
I'm kind of trying to see things in this conflict from their perspective more so than my perspective.
Okay.
And I have empathy, so I'm trying to understand where they're coming from, but at the same time, they're not going to
Okay,
be
so
successful.
you is over there, so I'm going to be gently rigorous with you.
Yeah.
You is over there, standing here, what is most important to you as that stakeholder?
Gaining their perspective.
Gaining my perspective. Do it from your shoes as if you are that stakeholder. What is it that you want as a stakeholder?
Understanding motivation.
Okay, that's you over there, right,
Okay.
as the manager.
Okay.
I want to understand their motivation. You are the they.
Okay.
You're the they. You're the group that she over there is trying to do something about.
Yeah.
What is it that you most want?
To be successful and to have an
Okay. All right. See how hard that is?
Yeah.
It's hard. And this is a smart woman. She's a really smart woman, but taking on that other perspective, very, very difficult. And until you can stand in somebody else's shoes, understand who they're looking at, there are people hidden behind that we don't even know that are influencing their behaviors, their drives, their intentions. Until we can stand in their shoes, we may not be able to meet their needs. So taking that perspective on, very helpful, and it's a challenge to do. Thank you. High five on that one. Okay, you guys, I'm going to let you guys sit down, and thank you so much for taking a ride on our innovative perspective exercise. And thank you for standing so long, too. Appreciate that. I think there's stuff on that chair, so yeah. Okay. You can move the, if you want to move the water bottles off of that. Okay. Okay, so City of Columbus, you are a city of opportunities and challenges. You have, when we were doing research about coming here, you have this, you are Smart Columbus. You have tech-based and inclusion-based initiatives that are going on. You won $40 million out of 77 other cities that competed for this U.S. Department of Transportation award, and you got an additional $10 million from Vulcan. Then in turn, this is what's really cool, through a public-private partnership, you turn that $50 million into $500 million. Public-private partnerships are an extraordinary collaboration between the public sector and the private sector. We just did something that with a consortium that was being stood up. It had 8 different companies from around the world who were both competitors but who wanted to collaborate. And they are getting together to do cutting-edge research in crop research. Unbelievable. And it was all made possible because of the public-private partnership. So you can imagine if I got my own business interest in mind, we really had to hammer that out. And also, where's the space we can collaborate in? This is business that is good for business and good for humanity. Very innovative that you guys are already there engaging in this. You also, as I mentioned, have the largest concentration of Fortune 1000 companies right here. and a large low-income population. If you want to make a difference, you can do that. You are doing that right here, right now. You do not need to travel. You are right in the homeland, right? So you may be thinking, okay, had some insights here, but really, how do I make this work for myself? It is to go out and practice this. The mindset, the assumptions, the perspectives. It's not rocket science, and it is. You will only really refine this, and every time you achieve a certain level, I'll be candid with you, there'll be another level to go to. But at some point, it's less about your technical expertise, and it's going to be about how you work with, inspire, and lead others. You may be thinking that you've already invested in team building. If you're a company or an executive, team building works and can be helpful, but we haven't found it develop the skills that people need so that they actually do improve their team performance, their individual performance, and that of the company. Or you may be thinking that you really don't have a lot of conflict. And you know what? Even companies that have low-level conflict, it can prevent them from doing that breakthrough that they need to go to that next really innovative solution that gives them the competitive advantage in the marketplace. So we're going to put a list for those of you when you leave here. We're going to wrap up just a little bit early because I know we've got the CIO panel to go to. We've got a resource sheet on our website, leadershiphand.com, under resources. You'll see the name of it. Just over that resource, you'll also see a really cool thing that a group of women did in a company where they'd gotten in to solve problems, but they actually wound up shaping and changing the policies for the company too. So they really did become policy shapers. They changed the culture of the company. So really inspiring article on that. So we'll do that, and my request is if you are leading a team that is addressing a mission-critical decision or is launching a mission-critical project in the next 30, 60, or 90 days, please come see me immediately after this is over. I have some additional insights to share with you. So I want you to look real quickly at where we've been. We've covered the global, we've been around the world. We've looked at the global context. We've looked at the high cost of conflicts and why it happens. We have looked at your success strategy for how you've been successful, and one of those things you want to pull out of your hat and exercise more of, how your productive conflict workout, the mindset, assumptions, and perspectives. We've also done our innovative perspective exercise. So you guys, you are the future. You are innovators. You are prosperity creators. You are policy shapers. The world is calling, and we need you at your best. Thank you. Okay. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Okay. Whew. I am the future. Everybody, I am the future. All right. Thank you so much. Cool.